Hey there, my fellow lunatics, and welcome to Dakon's Madhouse. Alright there, ladies and gentle worms. Today's video is all about offhand items and accessories. So, without any kind of further ado, let's just hop right on into it. Number 1. All of the items are at their starting level. There are no item level upgrades. None of the items are reinforced. I have noticed that at lower levels, a lot of people tend not to reinforce their items, so I'm going to assume that you don't have the resources, or you just keep forgetting to reinforce. Number 3, I take into account at what point in the game the item is normally going to be found. So for example, the copper sword is more useful in the early game than in the late game, so I'm rating things with this kind of consideration in mind. Number 4. Different playstyles can alter the ranking of various weapons for different people. Now, I'm going to try to stay neutral and take all these different playstyles into account, but I must admit I have a bit of a bias toward fast attack speed weapons that hit more often than single shot attacks that do more damage in a single blow. I'm going to do my best not to let that get the better of me though. With that out of the way, let's take a quick look at the rating system in general and what each tier means. Starting with the S tier. This is the top tier. These are going to be our super versatile items, the best of the best, things that are used in multiple builds. A tier, those are going to be excellent items. Top tier for at least one build, and often versatile, but not necessarily the best of the best. B tier are strong items that you really aren't going to complain about, but they have limited use or are eventually outclassed by other items. C tier, these items are fine. You can't go wrong with them, but you will eventually replace them, or you are going to replace them pretty quickly. D tier, maybe these items have a little bit of a niche use, but otherwise they're really not that useful or worthwhile. And F tier, the item is trash, it's not any good, don't bother using it. First of all, we have got Azios's Dash Feather here, and this is starting us off strong, going straight into the S tier. This thing is an upgraded version of the Swift Feather, and we will get to the Swift Feather later, but it is really good as well. So this thing is versatile, it's useful, and the little dodge ability that it has is just extremely helpful. I know a ton of people rely on it. Definitely an S tier item. Usable in tons of builds. Next we have got the Belt Pocket. Okay, and this guy, unfortunately, he's going down into D tier. It's just not a really good pouch. It's craftable. That's really its only advantage. So if you haven't found any kind of backpack yet, then you're going to want to make this. But if you've found any of the backpacks that are available in the early game, then you're not going to need this one because they're all better. Next on the list, we have got the Blue Leather Tome, and this one is going straight into S tier. It has a massive ranged damage boost, and it is available pretty early. Now, mind you, it is available late in the pre-wall stage, but it is still a pre-wall item that you get that, frankly, this thing is just one of the best offhand items for any ranged build. Next, we have got the Cave Pouch, and this one is going into C tier. It's basically a higher quality version of the belt guy here, and that's pretty much it. If you've crafted this guy, you're going to upgrade to this guy. But if you found this guy, then you don't even need this guy at all. And that's why we got a C tier item here. It's fine, but you are also going to replace this pouch pretty quickly as well. The Caveling ID. Now, I am also going to throw this one into C tier. Look, it is a must-have item for any dodge build. I'm not going to lie about that. If you're a dodge build, this thing is definitely an S tier item. But in the state that it's in, it doesn't provide a lot of dodge bonus. And if you don't have anything better and you're getting hit a lot, throw this in. You'll be fine with it. You can't go wrong. It's a decent item. But there's better stuff available at the time that you are getting the Caveling ID. Speaking of better stuff that's available at about the same time, well, maybe a little bit later, next we have got the Concealed Blade, and this one I'm throwing into S tier. This thing's crit boost is excellent. It is used in a ton of different builds, and it makes this thing really versatile. Crit bonus being one of the most versatile items that is used in the widest variety of builds that I've put together myself. That's why I throw this guy into S tier. The Core Iris is going to come next, and this is going right into A tier. It is really, really strong. It's primarily designed for mining builds. However, a melee build could make use of this too. There are some better items, arguably, for melee builds, which is really the only reason why the Core Iris isn't an S tier item, in my opinion. But I think it kind of straddles that line between an A tier and an S tier item. Really high quality, a must-have for any mining build. Continuing the trend of high quality items, we have got the Crystal Meteor Chunk, and this one is going straight into A tier as well. It is usable in a variety of different builds because it just has a raw damage bonus. And I also think it is an S tier contender as well, except for the fact that it does have a drawback to it. And that drawback is really the only thing holding it from S tier, in my opinion. All right, now we've got the Explorer's Backpack, and this one's also going into C tier. It's basically just a straight upgrade from this other caveling pouch. However, it's a little bit easier to get your hands on. It's not B tier because, frankly, the next pouch is the B tier one. But the movement speed boost of the Explorer's Backpack is really handy, and one of the reasons why you may actually hold on to this pouch for a little while longer. However, you are going to replace it with Gorm's Stomach Pouch, which is the B tier one. It's got a really solid hit point bonus, especially for how early you get it, and it has the highest inventory slot count of all of the early game pre-wall bags. So this is what you're going to want to get your hands on as soon as possible, and it's really useful because in the early game you need those hit points. The Golden Jellyfish I'm going to throw into C tier. The hit point regen on it is useful, but that's really all it has going for it. So it's worth putting into your offhand slot if you really need the hit point regen, or you just find yourself dying all the time, or if you just don't have anything better. However, you are going to replace it once you get your hands on something decent. The Iron Shield is going to go into C tier as well, because this is a pretty decent shield and definitely an upgrade from the Wooden Shield. Something you are going to want to get when you're in a pre-wall stat. In fact, if you put it from a pre-wall point of view, I could even argue that this might even be a B tier item, but you are going to replace it very quickly once you drop that wall. So we'll go ahead actually and put it into B tier here, just because it is a decent shield and you will wear it for a while, but you are going to replace it once that wall comes down. The Lantern. This is the first Lantern that I've got on the list, and I'm going to put this one into C tier because this one is going to be the Lantern that you're going to have equipped for your entire pre-wall play. The moment you get your hands on this, you're not going to get any better. However, the moment, again, that wall comes down, you will be replacing this real fast. Morpha's Bubble Bag is the next bag on our list, and this one is going into A tier. The moment I really don't have any S tier bags. If I was to put a bag in S tier, it would probably be Morpha's bag, but I really don't think it's really S tier worthy. It is a really good bag, and it is useful in a variety of different builds, but it has some stuff that's also very useless in a variety of different builds. And for an S tier item, you want something that really doesn't have any drawbacks when you're putting it into a variety of different builds. And this one does have some. However, that being said, it has one of the highest slot counts. It has high movement speed boost, which you can't go wrong with. And then the mining boost is really good too if you're melee. So this is a good bag. And so that's why it's going into A tier. It's also why the Octarine bag, which has the same amount of slots as Morpha's bag, is only going into B tier. Because despite the fact that they do have the same amount of slots, the Octarine bag just really isn't all that good. I mean, yeah, it has armor boost and the glow is nice, I guess, but now that you have a lantern slot, the big advantage that the Octarine bag had was the fact that it came with glow, and during another point of early access, the lanterns were in the same slot as offhand items, so you couldn't have a lantern and an offhand. You can now. So the main advantage of the Octarine bag has been taken away by the sheer fact that they've updated the game throughout early access. Next, we have got the Octarine shield, and I'm putting this one into C tier. It is an excellent shield, don't get me wrong, and its attack speed boost is really useful. The fact that it's craftable is also nice. You can use it as an upgrade to the Iron Shield, but I kind of think the Iron Shield is a little bit better than the Octarine Shield personally, so I wouldn't even bother doing that. However, if you've decided you really don't want the Iron Shield or you don't like its bonuses, you prefer the movement speed boost, you prefer the attack speed boost, then yeah, grab yourself the Octarine Shield. It doesn't suck. Another item that doesn't suck and is actually really quite good, we've got Omeroth's Beak here, which is going into A tier. This is, in my opinion, one of the best melee items. In fact, it kind of straddles the line a little bit between A tier and S tier. I kind of want to put it in S tier because it is the melee equivalent of the blue tome. However, I have found in more melee builds, I find myself using something like the Concealed Blade instead of Omeroth's Beak. However, that is not always true, but it is in a lot of the builds. I don't always use Omeroth's Beak, and that's why I dropped it down to A tier instead. All right, and now we have got the Oracle deck, probably the biggest pain in the butt item to get in this entire list, and it is going into B tier. It has got a really strong hit point regeneration. It's a really good multiplayer item. I even use it in a couple of builds that I have, but I rarely use it in any kind of end game build that I have. So it's a little bit gimmicky, and I think that especially for how hard it is to get, it's just not quite good enough. And that's why I drop it into B tier. We're going to follow up with another B tier item. This is the Orb Lantern. This is by far the best mining lantern. If you've got a mining build, you're going to put in the Orb Lantern. If you're in a melee build, chances are you're going to use the Orb Lantern. So this could be argued that it is an A tier, but I'm putting it into B tier kind of because of the next item. And that is the Pearl Lantern. And this one is going into A tier because it is useful in a wide variety of builds. However, I don't think that the bonuses that it provides are good enough to warrant it being an S tier item. I would like to see an S tier lantern, but at the moment, I don't think we have one. So this being the best lantern, in my opinion, kind of forces the Orb Lantern into the B tier. And now we've got one of the cutest items in the game, the Pet Rock. And unfortunately, this thing is going straight into D tier. It is cute. It is a good little gimmick. And in fact, I do actually use it in one of my endgame builds. But it's only useful in extremely rare circumstances, and all of them obviously involving pets. So 99% of the builds out there are never going to equip this, and that is the reason it goes into D tier. However, it does have some very situational uses where it actually is pretty good. The Pumpkin Lantern. This one I am throwing into C tier because it is pretty much identical in every way to the normal lantern. You can get it pre-wall. It's really good. It just has a different ability, but otherwise it is just equally as good as the regular lantern. You can use either one. The Royal Gel. This one is going into D tier. It's really just a gimmicky item. It doesn't really have all that great of an ability. The only cool thing it has going for it is the fact that it makes you immune to slimes because you join their faction, essentially. I mean, that's fun, but it's just not that great. The Scarlet Backpack is our next backpack, and this one I am putting into B tier. It's got decent bonuses. The slots are decent. There's really nothing wrong with it. It's the perfect replacement for Gorm's stomach bag as soon as the wall drops. And it's craftable, so you might as well just grab it as soon as you can. The Scorching Aegis. Now, a lot of people might think, oh man, this is an amazing burn shield, and if you really want to use a shield that does burn, oh yeah, you're gonna want to use it. It's really good. It's probably one of the best shields. I'm still putting it into D tier. And here's why I'm putting it into D tier. When it comes to burn builds, that is really the only reason you would really want to use the burn shield. I can think of maybe one or two other reasons why, and if you can think of a good reason to use the burn shield without a burn build, please leave a comment. But for the most part, you're going to be the burn build if you're going to want to use a burn shield. And there's a better offhand item for burn builds than this shield, which is why it goes into D tier, because its only real purpose is for a burn build. And at the same time that you can get this shield, you're also getting the smithing gloves. And the smithing gloves are better in every way. So don't bother using this thing. Use the smithing gloves. And then we've got the Sentry Shield. The Sentry Shield I'm actually putting into C tier for one main reason. I don't really know this thing. I've never really played with it. I've never really tested it. I honestly started doing this whole thing and I looked at this item and went, oh wow, I just have never used it. So I have no opinion on this shield, and as a result, I don't really know where to put it. So I'm just going to put it in C tier, and I'm going to let you guys tell me about it. Leave a comment below. What's the Sentry Shield like? Where does it deserve to be? Let me know. The Small Lantern is next, and I'm going to throw this guy into D tier. It's really good since you can grab the Small Lantern as a free item if you pick the right class, and that gives you some light right at the very beginning. But that's really all it's good for. You're going to replace it with the regular lantern pretty quickly, and then you're never going to look back at this thing. It doesn't have any other advantage to it. So use it for the brief second that you're going to use it, if you even do. Otherwise, just use the regular lantern and don't bother. The Smithing Glove is next, and this one is going into B tier because it is the best offhand item for burn builds. And because it's only useful for burn builds, that's what keeps it out of A tier. But it is otherwise a great offhand item. If you're using a burn build or you want to focus on burn in any way, that's your offhand item right there. The Swift Feather, this one is A tier. It is acquired really early in the game. The dash ability that it has is vital for anyone who's new. A lot of people will really find this thing to be a lifesaver. You're going to want to grab it and you're going to want to use it in a lot of your early builds. It's not going to be used in the late game very much. You're going to replace it with Azios's Feather. However, when you first start, solid item. The Toxic Defender. This one's my only F tier item. And it's not that I don't really dislike the shield, because as a shield goes, it's fine as a shield. However, there are tons of better ways to apply poison. Tons of better ways. There's no reason to be applying poison via a shield. I don't understand the mechanic. If you've got a reason why you think that the Toxic Defender shouldn't be an F tier, please leave a comment, but I really don't see the value of this thing. The Turtle Shell, this one I'm throwing into D tier just because it is a gimmick item. I mean, the damage reduction to bosses is great, but if you're going to do that, then yeah, this is a good S tier item for the boss damage reduction build. But it's only good for the boss damage reduction build, and otherwise has absolutely no use. And I don't really think the boss damage reduction build is very good. I've made one, it's okay, but again, it's only good against bosses. It doesn't serve you well against anything else that you might fight. And when it comes to fighting bosses, not everything that the boss attacks with counts as the boss for purposes of boss damage reduction, which makes the thing just a complete waste of time. And finally, we end with the wooden shield, which I am putting into C tier. This is a good item. You know, you can get it for free if you... No, wait, no, you can't get it for free. You can get it really cheap, just crafting it with a couple pieces of wood. It's super easy. It is useful and versatile, and is probably one of the first offhand items that you're ever going to use, and is really only replaced with, you know, the iron shield or maybe the swift feather if you get your hands on that nice and early. You can't go wrong with the wooden shield in the early game, and you won't regret using it. But you will replace it pretty quickly. That is also true. And that wraps everything up for today's episode. If you enjoyed yourself, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you're interested in watching my videos regularly, and if you feel like adding some extra support to the channel, you can always join our Patreon or become a YouTube member. There are links in the description. Thanks again for watching. You're all wonderful, and until next time, stay crazy.